This man can jump from dozens of stories high, can fight a pack of wild beasts in the forest barehanded, tear apart car doors like a joke, and even pull a helicopter taking off. He is Kraven the Hunter, Marvel's newest superhero on the big screen. Without further ado, let's begin the story. The film opens with Kraven being escorted to Russia's prison number 6. The prisoners see a group of new arrivals and clamor to look through the bars. Kraven is assigned to a 2-person cell, his cellmate a bearded man. He immediately says he hates sharing a cell. Kraven replies, "Don't worry about that. I'll be here for a maximum of 3 days. If I stay a minute longer, you can kill me." The bearded man just thinks he's joking, because prisoners held here have no chance of leaving. During the prisoners' free time, two burly men come to cause trouble. They hold Kraven's weights tightly, but he lifts both of them up with his bare hands. Kraven is about to teach them a lesson when he is led to a small, dark room where a bald man named Semyon Zhukov, the head of the Kirov gang, awaits. He says thousands of adults and children around the world have died from the weapons Semyon sells. He doesn't like Kraven being so arrogant just because he's new. The next second, Kraven suddenly gets up as fast as a cheetah, knocks down to henchman, then rushes to Semyon, a knife piercing his throat. Kraven opens the door, overturns the guards, then climbs up the highest ventilation pipe, running straight to the roof of the prison, easily jumping across buildings. The guards gather urgently and start shooting wildly, but Kraven's shadow is like a ghost. Both searchlights and bullets can't keep up with his speed. 3 days is 3 days. Kraven went to prison just to hunt Semyon. He successfully escaped right in front of the guards and rushed into the terrifying blizzard. Suddenly, a fierce valve appears in front of him. Kraven stares into its eyes. The ferocious beast suddenly becomes docile. Kraven turns and jumps onto his accomplice's helicopter and leaves, while the guards later find the prisoner he replaced in the snow. No matter how you look at it, Kraven's physique is monstrously strong. The origin of this extraordinary power must go back 16 years, when Kraven was still named Sergei. He and his younger brother Dmitri studied at St. Michael's Academy. Their father worshipped the strong as king, applying brutal, wild educational methods to his children. The two brothers hadn't seen their mother for 2 years. This time, their father came, firstly to announce the news of their mother's death, secondly to take his two sons hunting on the prairie. Yes, you heard right, not to attend the funeral, but to hunt in the Tanzanian grasslands. The two brothers dared not disobey their father. During the hunt, the father tells Sergei, "Never be afraid of death, they are just prey, and we are predators." The father's purpose in coming to the Tanzanian grasslands is only one, which is to hunt the fiercest wild male lion here. The number of people who have died under the claws of this beast is countless. Dmitri hopes that his father will succeed. As long as he achieves his goal, he won't force us to come here to hunt anymore. As soon as he finished speaking, the lion stood in front of the two brothers. Sergei immediately signaled his brother to hide behind him, then raised his gun and aimed at the lion in front. Man and beast faced each other in silence. For some reason, the lion stared into Sergei's eyes, its expression gradually becoming gentle. At this moment, the father suddenly fired, hitting the lion. The gentleness disappeared immediately, then it rushed to pounce on Sergei and grabbed him to run away. The father fired several shots, but couldn't stop the lion, so he had to abandon his eldest son. At the same time, the female lead Calypso was following her parents to film wildlife. She held a lion card in her hand. Before leaving, Calypso's grandmother read her tarot cards, predicting a terrible accident would happen, so she gave her a bottle of medicine. This is a family heirloom, containing mystical and powerful strength. Calypso took advantage of her parents not paying attention, and sneaked out of the car, destined to encounter that lion. It pushed Sergei towards Calypso, and at this time, the blood on the lion also happened to drip onto Sergei's wound. After the lion left, Calypso hurriedly dripped the medicine her grandmother gave her into Sergei's mouth, the power of the sorceress, and the lion fused and reacted in his body. And soon after, Calypso's family called a helicopter. The girl put the card in Sergei's hand and watched the rescue team leave the prairie. Sergei was quickly taken to the hospital for emergency treatment, but was still declared dead due to his injuries being too severe. Just as the nurse was about to turn off the ventilator, Sergei suddenly woke up, and his eyes instantly became as terrifying as a lion's. After waking up, Sergei found that card and was very curious about his savior. At this time, Dmitri and his father rushed to hear the news. Although the doctor advised him to stay in the hospital for further observation, his father still took Sergei home. Back in the familiar bedroom, Sergei hurriedly looked at his correspondence, most of which had been opened by his father, and inside there were letters his mother had sent earlier. The mother and son not being able to see each other was all the father's fault. In the letter, his mother told Sergei to promise never to become like his father. At this time, the father called Sergei downstairs to talk, questioning why he didn't shoot the lion immediately that day, almost killing himself and his younger brother. Remember, never show weakness in front of the enemy. The reason why the father is so strict with Sergei is because his huge, shady business in the future will be handed over to his eldest son to manage. The father showed Sergei the lion's head hanging on the wall and said, "Now you don't have to be afraid anymore." But Sergei felt very angry. For the first time in his life, he was angry with his father, and even chased away his younger brother, who was trying to comfort him. Sergei didn't want to continue living like this anymore. He packed all the cash, passport, cards, and medicine, waited until late at night, and quietly left. He carefully walked on the roof, but ended up slipping and falling. But Sergei landed perfectly. A strange power surged in his body. Sergei didn't have time to think much and hurriedly left, only to see Dmitri standing in front of him. He didn't want his brother to abandon him, but Sergei was determined. He said goodbye to his younger brother and boarded the ship to leave England, returning to the prairie. Sergei keenly caught the sound of animals, and soon a herd of migrating buffalo ran by. Sergei hurriedly hugged his head and curled up, but the buffalo didn't attack him at all. Sergei fully realized that his body must have undergone some kind of transformation. He went alone to the campsite where he spent his childhood with his mother and began to test the limits of the energy in his body. Sergei ran and jumped like a wild animal, and his senses became extremely sharp. Today, he suddenly heard a familiar gunshot, so he quickly climbed a big tree near the village and looked around. He clearly saw two fathers and sons hunting a few kilometers away. Waiting for Sergei to run to the scene, the ground was already littered with buffalo carcasses. Their horns cruelly sawed off. Seeing that Sergei was still young, the hunter told him to go home quickly and not interfere in adult matters. Angered, Sergei picked up the dagger on the ground and immediately killed the hunter and his son. When he came to his senses, his hands were covered in blood. Time returns to the present. Sergei has become Kraven the Hunter. Over the years, he still hasn't found his savior, and the phone he carried with him when he left still receives messages from his father and younger brother. Dmitri hopes to meet him on his birthday, or at least get a phone call back. But Kraven doesn't answer his brother. He currently lives in the campsite left by his mother, living in seclusion, and doesn't want to be involved with his father anymore. Not long after, a group of poachers appeared on the prairie again. A large number of buffalo were brutally slaughtered. Just as they finished packing up and were about to leave, Kraven appeared again to block the road. These poachers are fully armed and clearly don't take him seriously. The lead driver steps on the gas and crashes straight into him. Unexpectedly, Kraven slipped under the car and climbed into the car in an instant and knocked down the two people in the back with lightning speed. He easily jumped into the passenger seat, stabbed the driver to death, and bit off the arrow of the skinhead sitting in the passenger seat. The car next to him saw that the situation was not good and hurried away. Kraven turned his head and memorized their license plate number, waiting for the blonde to run back and report to the boss, only to find Kraven sitting at his desk, holding a thick notebook in his hand. Inside must be a list of the company's business partners. Kraven stabbed the blonde through and calmly left the office, the body of the boss nailed behind the closed door. The scene changes, turning to Calypso. She has become a famous lawyer, currently attending Samantha's funeral. Samantha is a federal prosecutor who was shot dead last week. The culprit is Semyon Zhukov of the Kirov gang. A few days ago, Kraven accidentally learned of a clue about his savior, so he killed Semyon, which is considered a meeting gift. At this time, he steps forward to block Calypso, takes out the line card to identify himself, and tells her about Semyon's death. Calypso goes home to search for news and sees the news of Semyon being killed in prison. In addition, she also found similar cases. The people killed are all gangsters. The media nicknamed the murderer Kraven the Hunter. As a lawyer, of course Calypso knows that Kraven's way of doing things is wrong, but the incompetent police always let the bad guys run rampant. Someone standing up to punish them is not necessarily a bad thing. I know who your father is. You like him. Kraven explains that he left home a long time ago and cut off contact with his father. This time, he came to find Calypso. In addition to thanking her for what happened that year, he also wanted to discuss cooperation. Kraven gave Calypso an assassination list, saying, now she is working at the largest law firm in Europe and is also an excellent investigative lawyer and can completely use the company's resources to obtain the specific locations of the targets on the list. This is something Kraven can't do. If the two cooperate, they will definitely be able to eliminate these tumors. Calypso agrees to think about it. On the other hand, Semyon's partner, Rhino, learned of his death in prison. Rhino does not miss this opportunity. He is preparing to take over Semyon's organization. But to do that, he must deal with Semyon's three confidants first. The three gangsters looked at Rhino's bookish appearance and couldn't help but wonder, why is his nickname Rhino? Only to see Rhino take out a catheter from his backpack and then stab it into the socket on his body. Rhino's skin immediately transforms. The skinhead sees this and hurriedly shoots at him, but this hard skin is impenetrable to swords and spears. Rhino kills two confidants, leaving only one long-haired one to work for him. However, his ambitions don't stop there. Rhino's real target is Kraven's father, Nikolai Kravinoff. That night, Nikolai met Semyon's remaining confidant in a bar, wanting to discuss future cooperation. His youngest son Dmitri is the owner of this club, so he has his people everywhere. The new business was only halfway through when Nikolai noticed something was wrong with the long-haired man. "You've taken on another job, haven't you?" As soon as he finished speaking, the assassin sent by Rhino appeared. Nikolai pulled the long-haired man out to block the bullets. The bodyguards next to him immediately exchanged fire with the assassin. The customers in the bar hugged their heads and ran away, screaming. Dmitri was so scared he hid under the piano, and Nikolai picked up the dinner knife and threw it at the nearest assassin. After a round of gunfire, the scene was finally cleared. Nikolai told Dmitri to crawl out quickly. He always looked down on his timid son. In fact, Dmitri has grown up a lot. Now he is called Chameleon and is best at impersonating and imitating others. Rhino's side was not surprised to learn that the assassination failed. He had previously worked under Nikolai and knew that this old man was not so easily killed. Fortunately, his subordinates had found the murderer who killed Semyon, and even discovered that it was Nikolai's eldest son. Rhino instructs his subordinates to hand this matter over to Foreigner to handle. This person's identity is mysterious, self-proclaimed foreigner. He has eyes that can control others and has been obsessed with tracking Kraven the Hunter for many years. Time quickly came to Dmitri's birthday. Kraven hesitated for a while and finally climbed the hotel building, preparing to meet his only brother. He deliberately hid behind the bathroom door and gave his brother a warm hug. Dmitri was both surprised and delighted to see his brother, and immediately pulled him to the club to celebrate, and recalled the assassination a few days ago. Dmitri was very angry, always so timid. He more than anyone wanted to get Nikolai's respect. Kraven felt that Dmitri didn't need to change. The respect of a criminal wasn't worth anything. Unexpectedly, Nikolai suddenly appeared. He learned the news of Kraven's appearance from the inside, so he specially came to meet his eldest son. Kraven felt uncomfortable as soon as he saw his father, but today was Dmitri's birthday, so he had to endure it. After dinner, Kraven took his drunk brother home. Dmitri held him back and said, "I know why you came here today, because you feel guilty for leaving me to Dad. It's okay, I've forgiven you a long time ago." At night, the noise made it difficult for Kraven to sleep, so he had to run out to sleep in the open space in the middle of the night. The next morning, Kraven went to say goodbye to his younger brother, only to find the house in ruins, blood still remaining on the bed. Kraven ran to the balcony and looked, and found a group of men in black had kidnapped Dmitri. He didn't say a word, jumped down from a height, and chased after the black car barefoot. He ran while calculating shortcuts to save time. The kidnappers saw that Kraven ran faster than the car, so they hurriedly stepped on the gas to accelerate. Kraven ran and jumped between buildings, frantically chasing the black car, stomping his feet to jump up. He climbed onto the roof of the car and smashed the windshield barehanded. The kidnappers could only make sharp turns to throw him off, and Kraven crawled under the car, seeing his younger brother through the sunroof. Unexpectedly, the person sitting in the back suddenly fired a shot. Kraven was shocked, almost falling off the car. He clung to the edge of the car and broke the car door open, about to rescue his younger brother, when the driver deliberately crashed into the oncoming car. Then while Kraven fell, hugged Dmitri and boarded the helicopter. Kraven clung to the iron pole at the pier, wanting to pull the helicopter down. Unexpectedly, the assassin on it suddenly opened fire. Kraven hid behind cover, picked up an iron bar, and stabbed the assassin to death. But at this time, the helicopter had already taken off. He clung tightly to the fishing net and refused to let go. The helicopter pilot saw this and deliberately changed direction, causing Kraven to crash into the crane. Only then did he escape the pursuit of the other party. Kraven memorized the appearance and voice of the 4 kidnappers and immediately went to Calypso for help, hoping she could find information about them. Now he is very self-blaming, regretting that he should have stayed by his brother's side. Last night, while Calypso tried to search, Kraven returned home after a long time because the kidnappers would definitely demand ransom from his father. Nikolai received a finger from Dmitri. The kidnappers also told him to hand over $20 million within 24 hours, but Nikolai refused to pay. If he paid for this, it would be tantamount to admitting that he had a weakness. Moreover, since Dmitri was kidnapped, whether he paid or not, the kidnappers would not spare his life. Kraven mocked himself. "I shouldn't have come to you." On the other hand, based on the information he provided, Calypso found out that the kidnappers were hiding in a monastery on the outskirts of Ankara. However, Calypso doesn't know that the person she trusted has been bought by Foreigner. This clue is bait for Kraven to take the bait. She passes the information she obtained to the other party. Kraven quickly arrived at the place and climbed the sheer cliff of the monastery barehanded. He sneaked inside, knocked down a few kidnappers with poisoned arrows, and followed to patrolling soldiers to find the detention location. Kraven's movements are as light as a leopard. The 2 soldiers are completely unaware of anything. Kraven grabs the leader of the kidnappers, carries him outside the window, and forces him to ask about Dmitri's whereabouts. Unexpectedly, the ambushing sniper suddenly attacked. Kraven pulled the kidnapper and fell into the abyss. Before obtaining information, this guy can't die, so he uses his body to block the falling rocks. The kidnapper weakly utters the 2 words Rhino. Then, another large pile of rocks fell on the mountain. Kraven hurriedly shielded him, and both were buried by the rocks. The sniper's plan was successful. He hurriedly went to check the body. We took down Kraven. That's not for sure. Kraven picked up the phone on the ground and contacted Calypso, telling her to leave the law office quickly. This whole thing is a trap. At the same time, Dmitri is brought to Rhino. Rhino knows that the other party is an illegitimate child who is not valued and is also oppressed by Nikolai just like himself, so he has no intention of harming Dmitri, and even frankly says, "Our real target is your brother." After speaking, Rhino shows a surveillance video in prison, revealing that Kraven is the legendary Kraven the Hunter. Although Dmitri doesn't understand his brother's behavior, the brotherly affection will not be shaken. But Rhino worked hard to find someone in the same situation. Losing control, he said to Dmitri, "Your father always said I was weak, so I accepted biochemical transformation and became as hard as a rhinoceros." Rhino wants Dmitri to cooperate with him and take over Nikolai's empire together, but he didn't expect this weak illegitimate child would refuse to betray his family. In that case, Rhino didn't need to keep him. In a critical moment, his subordinates came to report that Kraven was not dead yet. Just as he finished speaking, Foreigner appeared. The moment he took off his glasses, everyone seemed to be pressed the pause button. Foreigner turned the muzzles of the bodyguard's guns, teleporting behind Dmitri. He warned Rhino not to touch this illegitimate child before catching Kraven, because Dmitri is Kraven the Hunter's only weakness. Rhino didn't understand why Foreigner was so obsessed with Kraven. Foreigner explained, "Because it killed my master." Foreigner took out a poisonous plant and said, "This kind of bean only grows in specific areas of Siberia. I found its toxins on the poisoned arrows in the monastery, which shows that Kraven the Hunter is hiding in Siberia." Kraven and Calypso meet. He takes her to his place, but suddenly stops. Halfway, Kraven senses a predator lurking nearby. The next second, a ferocious beast rushes out of the grass, pounces on Kraven and bites. The two sides wrestle on the ground for a few rounds. Kraven looks directly into the eyes of the ferocious beast, successfully repelling the opponent. After that, the two came to Kraven's base, which is filled with all kinds of natural plants. Over the years, Kraven has been trying to recreate the medicine that Calypso gave him, but has not been successful, and Calypso's grandmother has passed away. The formula for this medicine has long been lost. Not long after, Rhino and the others came to the prairie. Foreigner, in order to deal with Kraven, specially prepared a poison developed by MI6, which can instantly paralyze the heart, causing all creatures to stay away. Rhino forced Dmitri to contact Kraven, wanting to persuade the other party to cooperate with him to kill Nikolai. Unexpectedly, he hung up the phone before he finished speaking. This time Rhino was really angry, and immediately led an armed team into the forest to hunt Kraven the Hunter. Kraven also fully armed and prepared to fight. At this moment, Rhino's hound suddenly barked loudly, and immediately afterwards the beast rushed out to attack the soldiers. Kraven took the opportunity to escape into the depths of the mountains. This place is completely his territory. No one understands the forest better than Kraven. Rhino of course knows this well, so he dispatched helicopters to bombard from the air. Although the bomb didn't hit Kraven, it quickly caused a forest fire. The thick smoke obscured Kraven's vision, and a poisoned arrow hit him. Kraven saw many spiders in his delirium. It needs to be made clear here. In the original comics, Kraven suffered from arachnophobia because of childhood shadows, especially afraid of this multi-legged reptile. Foreigner took the opportunity to fire a few more shots. Once the toxin enters Kraven's spinal cord, he will lose all ability to move. Foreigner took the opportunity to punch and kick Kraven, and Kraven finally found an opportunity to fight back, only to find that what he was holding was not Foreigner, but just a broken piece of wood. The toxin seriously affected his body. Foreigner was about to shoot Kraven, but an arrow flew over, hitting him right in the eye. It turned out to be Calypso arriving in time. She took out the medicine and gave it to Kraven. "Hey, didn't you say the formula was lost?" It turned out to be a trick on Kraven. Rhino's side thought that Kraven the Hunter was dead, and happily took Dmitri back, but unexpectedly a herd of buffalo suddenly rushed over. Rhino hurriedly transformed into a rhinoceros to defend himself. The car was overturned by the buffalo, and Kraven also caught up. "You're really heavy." He breaks free from the restraints and kicks the opponent away, and Rhino relies on his hard head to crash straight into the truck. The truck overturns and crushes Dmitri's car. Dmitri is locked in the car. Fortunately, he's fine, and Rhino's subordinate is thrown out of the car. Finally, he was pierced by a buffalo horn and died. This is the consequence of not wearing a seat belt. So Dmitri saw the herd of buffalo. His first reaction was to fasten his seat belt. Seeing that his brother was fine, Kraven continued to deal with Rhino, but this guy has thick skin and fat flesh. Even a knife can't pierce it, making him beaten black and blue, like a human sandbag. Kraven didn't believe in evil and looked for opportunities to attack again, but was strangled by Rhino. "There's one thing my dad said, right? You are nothing." As soon as Kraven finished speaking, he grabbed the steel pipe and stabbed it hard into Rhino's injection socket. Then, he took the steel wire on the truck and wrapped it around the opponent, throwing the other end towards the buffalo herd. Rhino was thrown into the middle of the buffalo herd and trampled miserably. Kraven approaches the dying Rhino and forces him to ask where he got the prison surveillance video. Just as he finished speaking, Dmitri suddenly approached with a gun, wanting to kill Rhino, but Kraven stepped forward to stop his younger brother. Rhino was about to die anyway. He didn't want Dmitri to get blood on his hands. Not long after, Kraven investigated the truth. The person who sent the video to Rhino was Nikolai. He was cunning and used Kraven to eliminate Rhino. A fierce tiger doesn't eat its cubs. Kraven couldn't forgive his father for putting his younger brother in danger. He turned and left the base. Then the roar of beasts echoed in the deep forest. Nikolai hurriedly picked up his hunting rifle and found that the bullets inside had been removed by Kraven. He had no other choice but to die under the claws of a bear. A year later, it was Dmitri's birthday again. After experiencing this change, his character changed greatly, not only taking over his father's business, but also undergoing biochemical transformation, truly becoming a chameleon. "Did you want me to be weak so you could be strong? But now I'm strong, I can be whoever I want." Dmitri told his brother to go home, saying, "Dad left something for you. Sergei, we have our own paths. Embrace who you are and you'll find the strength to walk it. You're more than your father's son." This is the end of the movie. The plot is very messy. Whether it's the father-son conflict or the villain's motives, even Chameleon's final choice lacks enough context to build a foundation. However, if you look at the action and scenes alone, it's still very good. The brother rescue scene at the beginning of the film is designed to be brutal and straightforward, very much in line with the characteristics of Kraven the Hunter. But the final battle with Rhino at the back is not as good. Overall, in terms of special effects and action scenes, it's still worth watching.